So welcome everybody to the March meeting. I want to thank all that contributed to the plant forum. That helped get everybody connected and get to see what everybody else is happening in their garden. So I appreciate you guys sharing. And Jeff, you're on first.
Okay, so this picture is, as you can see, it's a container that has a bunch of cactus were the primary plants in this container. They were given to me by a friend who didn't want to have prickly things around anymore. And this, which is either crassula or sedum, I'm not sure which. They can be hard to distinguish for me. But as you can see, it's got these two large lobes on either side of this container that are both in spectacular full bloom. And so it was just a real pleasure to watch this happening over the course of the last few weeks, and it's perfect for tonight because it's really at peak bloom right now, and it's been really fun to have developing before my very eyes. So there it is.
I love the contrast with the red stems. It looks crassulaceae to me. I don't know, anybody
Yes,
have any opinions?
same. I
Huh?
have the same opinion.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
I wouldn't mind a cutting of that one though.
I will bring some to the next meeting.
Oh, good. I'll take a little bit too.
I have to cut it back or these cactus are going to suffer.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good. Anybody else have any experience with growing either this particular one or
Yes, it's it's Crashla. I have it in the garden. I'll give you a bunch of them, Ellen,
banana?
if you want. Yes.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
It's like a weed.
Obviously
It's like a weed.
if
Is
you're
it
in San Francisco, you have you're more warm than I am, but I still assume with climate change that that'll make it outside because some of my crassulas are now not suffering very much at all anymore. They used to suffer in our
Anna's
cold
in Walnut
weather.
Creek?
What?
Anna
I
is
mean,
in Walnut Creek.
Oh, so you have it outside, Anna?
yes.
Good to know.
The blooming now as
Hmm.
well?
Yes. I
Okay.
haven't looked at today, but it was 2 days ago.
Excellent.
So on the left with this ranunculus repens, I believe I got this plant originally maybe 5 years ago from the botanical garden in Golden Gate Park. Had one specimen, it grew, it was perfectly pleasant, and then it kind of went away. And but then over the course of the last couple of years, it has started popping up as a little surprise plant in a whole variety of different places. And this year it has come up in at least 13 different places,
Wow.
both at the same level that the original plant was, and also down a level, 3 or 4 feet down on the next terrace down in my front yard. And so it is quite lovely. These you can catch in that middle bloom. You can see how it really catches the sun like like full glossy paint. And so it's fully glossy and beautiful yellow and popping up in a variety of different places. So it's one of these things where if you are a gardener who has the time and energy to keep up with plants that want to pop up everywhere, it's probably a really great thing. If you don't have that much time, it may pop up a little bit more than you might like. But I'm enjoying the heck out of it this year because it's come up and is blooming in many, many different spots. So
You can
very
bring
nice.
that to Cal Hort next meeting too, Jeff.
Okay, I'll rip some out and bring it with me.
I love stuff that pops up. I think it's just a joy, especially if it's yellow at this time of year.
And I'm pretty sure it's doing it by rhizomes or the root system, not by
Yeah.
seed.
I have a lot of stuff
Yeah.
like that, so it's not a problem for me.
And on the right, this is the bonanza that came to us from when we had our last big festival potluck dinner in November, I think it was, or late October. Judy brought like 4 different boxes full of little tiny bulbs of all different kinds. And this is one of the bulbs that has come up, and it is looking fantastic. And so thank you, Judy. And it is just a real pleasure. They're so cute, these little hyacinth.
Jeff, Jeff,
Yeah.
now this one to me is a pest. And my
Okay.
strong advice to you
Mm-hmm.
is deadhead it before it goes to seed because it
Okay.
will become your garden.
Ah, Okay.
I've had
Well,
that experience too, but it is cute.
the fact that it's growing happily in my coldest, shadiest, moistest spot is to me like, oh, a discovery, something that will really do well in a problematic spot. So, but
It'll
I'll keep
also do
tabs on
well
it.
in non-problematic spots.
Okay, good to know.
You can also
Super.
cut it and bring it inside in a vase. It's really
Oh,
pretty.
good to know.
I
It
Do they
got
have
comes
some
an
in
aroma?
inside.
pink. Yeah, I
Yeah,
have the pink one. I have all the
I've
colors
got the
too.
pink one. Yep.
Yep.
Mm, cool.
And
Yep.
in the cracks of the sidewalk.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Up
like
here,
it.
up here in Oregon, I love those bluebells when they pop up under my dogwood tree, and they don't really spread very rapidly up here. I don't know what keeps them in check, but I just look forward to them about every spring, which is not, they're not up yet, but hopefully they'll be soon.
Sweet.
Nice. That'd be pretty under the dogwood. Do they bloom coinciding with the dogwood then, Robbie?
Yeah, somewhat they do. You're right.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
And this is an example on the left. I mentioned in an earlier meeting that I was experimenting with pollarding my hazelnut as a means of keeping it to a smaller size. But then I had postponed the pruning of it more recently because I didn't want to miss out on the catkins. And so here is the end result of not having pollarded it this past year, letting it grow and getting these catkins. They're so much fun. They're so beautiful, and it's part of the full cycle of the plant. And so once this finishes, I'm going to figure out what the best time is to prune it, and then do another round of pollarding the hazelnut so I can maintain its size to a very manageable stature.
Yeah, we remember that, seeing that in your garden when you had your garden
Mhm.
on view. When we went to Don Gardens this past weekend, he had a beautiful one. The picture doesn't really show you can see its beautiful structure and stuff, but yeah, it just looks like dangling tinsel on a tree or something like that.
So in my garden, so as for anyone who visited, I've only got about 800 square feet to work with, and a larger, even a big bush is a consideration to really think twice about, to say nothing of a tree. And so the example that you've included, Ellen, here from Grass Valley, a tree or a bush that size would really take up about a quarter of my front yard. So that's why I'm really energetic about trying to control the size of things and find things that will fit and not get too big.
Yeah, it's well, that one was probably about 10 feet wide, and probably, I don't know if it even was 10 feet tall, but yeah, it was probably about 100 square feet at least.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
spreading more than upright.
I appreciate all the cuttings that he gives me for flower arranging.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. So soon you'll get more, Charlotte.
Nice. Okay. So then, Kristen.
Okay, so well, I have you do have the shot of yellow in
You want
that's
that
hard.
first?
Yeah, but that's okay.
We can
Oh,
go next.
yellow on a rainy day. Yeah, so I figured out that I really love the sunshine, which is why I live out here in Danville, because we get a lot more than you do in San Francisco and Berkeley. And in the winter, of course, we still get all that rain and cloud, and I do not like rain and clouds very much, except that it provides me water, which then allows me to have this garden. So I'm trying to learn to be grateful. And but I have a bunch of plants that this is in my what I used to call my wildflower garden, but everything is changing all the time right now. And all of these were experimental. Acacia cultriformis was given to me by Kathy Eccles, who now lives in Oregon. And um, of all the acacias, well, I'll get to that when the acacia picture comes up on its own. And then I have two Roldanas. Both of them are from San Marcos growers. The only one they still carry is Roldana pedestaltes. The other one is Aschenborniana. And I got them only because they were daisies for the winter, and I was told I couldn't grow them. And he says in it that it will often freeze back, but the leaves are pretty amazing in and of themselves. But with climate change now, I'm not seeing this year I saw a colder winter at 26, which some of you might think 26 is cold. For me, cold used to be 15. That's the big difference to me with climate change. So I thought I would talk about the yellow. And then, of course, there's Bulbinella robusta, which we're going to have Panayiotis colitis speak to us in July. And he was here when I had a Cal Hort event in the spring at this time, well, at this time of year. And he said, I couldn't believe your Bulbinella robusta. I just will never forget that. So Bulbinella robusta, also now have to deadhead because it comes up in the cracks and comes up everywhere. At any rate, so this is Rolldana pedicides. And if you look at it, it has the photograph. Well, you can see in one of the flower clusters, the stems of the flowers are quite red. They're in the daisy family, or it's Asteraceae now, I believe. And both of the Roldanas come out of that part of Mexico, which includes Oaxaca. And this one come from the higher region and are supposed to be more cold hardy. Uh, the leaves themselves, they aren't that big. In fact, if you read what was written on San Marcos website, which, by the way, after San Marcos closes, will still exist, um, they they have a red backing on pedicides, and so this is more centered in the Oaxaca region. And as I said, it's weathered much colder weather. I've had in the early years of this, when we were at 15 and 18, I never saw a flower. Now I see flowers every year. And it's always a trade-off. Do I want to cut it back or do I want to have the flowers? And it's a tough decision.
Well, can you cut it back later?
I might try that at least on part of it this year and see what happens. Yeah.
Does it not come back with
Oh,
from?
I think it would come back. Do I want to hack the whole thing down? I have to think about that. At any rate, next.
There we go.
Okay. Oh, good.
Go ahead.
Just a question. Have you grown Rolldana gilgii? And if so, can you give tips on how to manage it?
I have never grown. I didn't know there was another Rolldana, and I don't know where you could possibly even get it.
I got it from the San Francisco Botanical Garden, and
Oh, do they
it
get
has
out of it?
big leaves, giant leaves, like 2.5 feet across, and it is growing.
Have you ever tried rooting it? Does it work?
Uh,
You
well,
don't prop it, do you? You don't do much propagation, do you?
I haven't, not with this one, and
Well,
it does
if you
flower, and it's got big, tall stems. I'm just wondering if I were to cut it to the ground, would it come back? What's your experience with other
Well,
Rolldana?
he says on the website as well, but for me, when it froze back to the ground, it always came back.
Great.
So it used to be that when I thought of freezing back as pruning without having to make a decision as to
Right.
what to prune. But I don't have that luxury anymore. But as I said, I'd always cut it back hard and then it would come back with these glorious leaves, and I was happy enough. But of course, when you see this gloriousness now, this picture on the right is not my picture, right? Or did you try to take
I wanted to get a picture of the difference of the flower. So it's that one built up, so it's out of focus a little bit, but actually
Yeah.
you can kind of see it right here a little bit, the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I have them. The one on the lower left is the Pedicides, and the other one is the Aschenborniana. So this one is supposed to be more widespread, which means it also grows in the lower altitudes, but apparently it is not affected. And by the way, in the front of it is a rose, and in the back of it is a yeah, brain cramp, the red mallow that I got from it'll come to me. And I should be pruning. I know I should be pruning. Oh, Richard Starkison just said pedicides is easy to root, except it's Edie, he said. But I love you anyway, Richard.
Except it's whaty?
Edie, but
What
it's
does that
easy
mean?
to root, he says. So if it's easy to root, I would be happy to take a cutting and see how it does out here. Well, let me just tell you about the
Is
cultiformis.
that it
Oh, I
here?
got a, yes. Cultiformis is an acacia. And there was a guy who used to be very active in Cal Hort. He ran the projector and everything. And he said he was big in master gardeners. And he said, yeah, well, acacias are not long lived. And Kathy Eccles gave me this one, and at the same time, she gave me Acacia pravissima. And my Acacia pravissima is coming down this year because last year the branches started falling. I mean, the main trunk started falling off. And I think Dick and I had been able to keep it going for as long, because I think I kept it going for 30 years, because we would tip prune it after the bloom. And I found that with a lot of Mediterranean type plants, if you tip prune it, you get a lot more growth and it gets strong. And I have Acacia stenophila, which is the shoestring acacia. Ted Kipping gave me a really hard time because my husband, Dick, wanted me to cut it back from the top because we have a solar system and he wanted the solar system to get a lot more sun. And I did it, and Ted came over and started lecturing me about not pruning that way. But I had no choice. I told Dick we could take it down. This tree grows with literally no water out here. And he said, no, I love the tree. So I have always top pruned it, and it is doing phenomenally. So back to cultiformis, I don't even prune this one. And this is as old as the one I'm taking down, and it is robust and healthy, shows no sign of deterioration. It has gray leaves. It always looks spectacular, always looks this full. And then it has this glory. It comes out before Pravissima does in terms of bloom. So I don't know enough about acacias, and I would be really interested if anybody else knows a little bit more, because maybe it's not true that all acacias die after 25 years. Does anybody have a thought about that?
I think they
No,
may have that reputation because they're fast growing. I don't know.
I don't know either, but at any rate, the Pravissima reseeded like crazy, and I put one somewhere else because now I have other trees that I want to let have space. It's real interesting with trees, isn't it? At any rate,
I
thank you.
heard in horticulture classes that plants that are more drought tolerant and used to not a lot of, like summer water and so forth, if they're watered all the time, that shortens their lifespan.
And that might make sense because the Pravissima gets water, whereas, I don't know, but the cultivarmus may not get as much water because this is, you can see my sprinkler heads standing high there, and it's those finger heads that slowly turn. And it doesn't get that much water in this garden.
Okay.
It could be because the Stenophila gets no water.
This is from my garden, and I'm starting to get
Ah,
go
Nina.
out on my walk. With this garden is down by the street, so I get to see it when I go on my walks and stuff. And at first I saw a little baby blue. I go, oh, cool. And then I see the little 5 spot,
I'm jealous.
and then I've got lupin all over the place. Lupin is really taken over, and then the vetch, which I leave some of those in.
Do you have snails?
If they eat those, I don't. But no, I don't really see a lot of snails. No.
Maybe because I've tried to grow this so many times, I've given up.
And this doesn't get any water in the summertime, so that might be a reason they don't have the snails. I don't know. But
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, I did seed some wildflowers, and I got a pretty good show the second year, which was good. They reseeded. And then I've got a lot of Gilia capitata, which is what the purple is when you go over the grapevine, which I'm real excited about. And though my poppies have kind of fittered away, I used to be all poppies, and now these are other things are coming up. So kind of
I'm curious to hear because I think my poppies used to be in that yellow garden, and
Mhm.
you'd be challenged to find a poppy there. I used to call it my poppy garden. And I
There's
just wonder if over time plants get, like they tell you to rotate your tomatoes, you have to rotate your wildflowers too.
well, I
They
know
move.
the in the poppy preserve, they used to they were preserving it so they didn't disturb the soil. And I think poppies do like disturbed soil, and they're kind of a oh what do you call that one? Pioneer plant. So I think that might be possibly
That makes sense because they always come up in my main gardens where I disturb the
big.
soil all the time.
Yeah. Okay. And then Judy.
I don't know if I've shown this before, but it's a nice bloom right now. This is a camellia. It used to be called Camellia azalea, but azalea is a genus, and so you really can't use it as a species name. So I guess the other name is Camellia chongii. It's rare in habitat, but this is one that I
The beauty.
purchased from Nuccio's nursery a few years ago. They had taken quite a few grafts of it, and it blooms in summer too. So it's blooming now, but it'll bloom through summer. So it's kind of
Wow.
attractive.
Through summer, not just another bloom. So it goes
Pardon?
continuously. Is it continuously through summer or is it have a flush now and a flush?
I would say a flush earlier in the summer. When it starts to get really hot, it peters out, but it blooms well into July.
And when does it start again in the fall?
This has been blooming since probably mid-January.
That's
So it's
interesting.
not like a Sasanqua. It's more like a Japonica, but yeah.
Has an interesting leaf for a camellia too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Different shape.
yeah. And it
And-
takes actually a fair amount of sun, which is interesting.
The do you grow it in a pot?
I do right now. I got it small and it was a graft, and the graft union wasn't particularly strong, so I wanted to make sure I protected it. It wouldn't get the water it needs if I put it in the ground. That's why I have it in a pot.
Well, because I have two Japonica types in pots since I've moved here, and that's 30. I moved in 87. 7 from 15 is what? 8. So 38 years. They're still, I did repot them once in those 38 years, but they're still there. And now I'm doing it with my Sasanqua, the Christmas one. I've forgotten what it's called.
Yuletide.
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 Because I've tried Yuletide in the ground and I cannot get it to take at all.
Really?
But in the pots, they just, I mean, I pruned them hard last year and they didn't give me the busting bloom they gave me the previous year, but they still bloomed.
Huh.
They're great
That's
pot
funny
plants.
because my Yuletide's in the ground and it does great.
Yeah, well, I had a client and we had it great, but I could, in my ground, does not want to go. So,
Okay. Anyway, I'm enjoying it, and especially since the news about excuse me, Nuccio's closing, I thought I'd share that. I
so
got
that
these
is
seeds,
no longer available.
I'm not sure. Anyway, I got these seeds, I think, from Cal Hort actually, and I've always wanted to grow it. I've seen it at Don Mahoney's garden. So he said the secret was really deep pots. So I had some of these tree kind of little pots that are like 12 inches deep, and I went ahead and sowed them before I left for vacation in October. They got regular water, and they are blooming, and they're a fabulous blue color. I really like them. But yeah, you really need deep pots. And then there's more soil underneath in the 1 gallon pot as well.
Hmm.
So are they don't have much of the are they have a bottom to those tubes?
They do have bottoms, but they're well drained.
Then just a synopsis of our, if anybody wants to chime in for the Dawn Gardens, we went up there this weekend on Saturday, and it's a huge garden. As you can see, his house is up to the left there, and then this is obviously in the fall, but it's kind of amazing. It's a little smaller than Tilden Park and twice the size of like Ruth Bancroft or Western Hills. So it's big, and it has all sorts of beautiful borrowed landscapes too. And this is by one of our lifetime members, and he used to be a professor at Merritt and a landscape contractor. So this was his experimental garden. He used to bring, and it was started about 20 years ago, and he'd have people from his clients come up and see what this plant looked like. Everything's very meticulously labeled and such, which is great because you can see, and he has a dwarf or a conifer collection and a heather collection and a
I
dogwood
guess he must have
collection.
roses too, because he's going to open it for his roses later this year, he said.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I was up there with Ellen, and it is a beautiful, beautiful garden. Well worth the drive to go visit, truly.
I just love it. He's going to open it up again in April and then May as well. Here's some pictures, and this little Virginia,
Oh, Maritima.
yeah, what
It's
is it?
called,
Virginia stock, I guess they call it, was
yeah.
sprinkled around here and there, but he evidently uses like 2 inches of mulch. I mean, there's no weeds in this garden for the most part, except for maybe this, if you want to call this a weed. But evidently his blog on the internet is really great too. But he has like whenever he puts something in, he puts like 2 inches of mulch, and then maybe a couple of years later he'll put more on if it hasn't really spread out to its full capacity. But
What does he use for mulch? Do you know? Just whatever he finds as mulch?
well, I don't know. He says buys 100 yards each every year or whatever.
Wow.
I was going to say that daffodil was just amazing. I looked it up. I'm going to see if I have it right now, but it was so fragrant. I mean, it just knocked your socks off. And I'd never smelled one quite that floriferous or that sweet smelling. It was a beautiful, beautiful garden.
Do you remember when he's gonna open his rose garden, his roses?
It's
Did he
gonna
say like June
No, he said April, I think early April and then mid-May. But
for
he
his
advertises
roses?
it on his website, but he hasn't got those down yet.
Oh, okay. I'll check his website. I'd love to see that. I wonder if they're old garden roses or moderns. Do you know?
You know what?
Well,
This time of year, I didn't notice any garden roses actually.
Up
yeah.
against the fence, though, he had, I don't think they were particularly heritage roses. I remember there were several that I recognized, so I don't think they were really old. I didn't notice any Austin roses or anything like that.
Were they climbers?
Well, thanks. I'll check
He
the
had them on the
website.
fence. He had quite a few of them along the fence, along with clematis.
Okay. Oh, and then he holds the claim to fame of the largest Pinus sabiniana in the world, evidently. So it's been documented by some doctor in Washington, University of Washington. So that was kind of fun. And they were doing a webcast for Green Acres nurseries up in, I guess, Sacramento area. They're mostly.
Aren't they the ones that bought the website Manny's Annuals?
No, that's I think Pleasant Valley.
Oh.
Peaceful Valley.
Peaceful. I keep saying that. Peaceful Valley. But he has rhododendron garden, camellia garden. We'll let it be known when we go up there again, or when he's going to have it open again.
Is he selling these lilies or something?
No, we saw Daisy Ma was up there with
Oh,
us.
yeah, right. That's Daisy's garden. I thought so. Okay, sorry.
She gave us
A flat of
seeds.
lilies that she started herself.
Those look gorgeous.
And these are the
They
lilies.
are. Yeah.
But evidently they reseed very well, or come up from seed very well. So those will be available at the April meeting. A couple of March announcements. We're looking for board members, as we always are. So if you guys are interested in helping guide the society to different types of speakers or field trips, or if you want to see other things happening, even if you don't want to be a board member, feel free to contact any one of the board members. Jeff, Heather, Dave, Mary, Batson, or Ellen. Charlotte is honorary member. She's the membership. And then Mary, do you want to address the viewing of the old tapes and media project?
We have a couple big stacks of CD-ROMs that are, I'm sorry, they're DVDs, and they are old programs. Some are topical presentations that didn't have anything to do with Cal Hort, but like pruning or something, but also on different species of plants. And anyway, there's so many that we really need to review them, because sometimes the recording is distant or audio is, echoed and not. So we really, before we put them anywhere or do anything with them, we would like to have them reviewed. So if anyone is interested in reviewing some, we have a list of them, and I can send it to you and see if you are interested in watching these things. They're DVDs, so you have to have that equipment to play it. Or you can just, well, I don't know. I mean, nowadays computers don't even have DVD, CD-ROM drives or anything. I mean, you have to buy your own. So anyway, they're available, and you can indicate your interest in an email to calhortinfo@gmail.com, and we will contact you and send a list of what we have. And I mean, some of them we could put up on the YouTube for the whole society to see. But it's dangerous to do that if they're not, we don't want to discourage people if it's really a rusty old recording.
Thank you. And then oral histories. It's been suggested that we do oral histories for some of our generation that is starting to phase out, which would be a shame to have that. California, especially Bay Area, horticultural gems without having some sort of documentation and history and such. And then I saw Nancy Schramm on here. Do you want to announce what's happening with Barry?
Barry Coat?
So Barry had a fall
Mm.
that was probably caused by either a stroke or heart attack. Carol was not clear. He broke.
His tibia.
Thank you.
Just medical history, but
Broke something.
Yeah, his shin bone. His shin bone.
You caught me off guard here.
sorry.
But Carol sent, so he's doing well. He's talking trees. He's in the care part of the development where they were going to move, but they have not moved. So poor Carol, it sounds like the house is like everything's misplaced because they were getting ready to move. But she did send an address that I think you have, Ellen.
Yeah, if anybody wants to write Barry a card, and I'll let Nancy describe who he is, for those who don't know him, that you can just email calhortinfo@gmail.com and we'll send you the address where you can send a card if you want to do that. You want to get a little scoop about who Barry is?
So he got into the nursery business a long time ago. I think I've known him since I was in grade school, and I seem to remember that he got a Young Nurseryman Award from, at that time, the California Association of Nurserymen. He's done a lot in the nursery industry and arboriculture. He's taught. He's been interested in plants forever. And there used to be a sign at their open garden that please wear a name tag, because if you don't photosynthesize, Barry does not recognize.
And Barry used to be I don't know if he was the director or very involved with Saratoga Horticulture Foundation, which was doing experimentation with plants and introducing plants and such as well, correct?
He was actually in demand all over the world. And the Getty Museum, the one that is not by the ocean, but, inland, he was the primary consultant for that, for the plants. And I actually went to an event where he talked about going to the nurseries with the artist whose name, of course, I've forgotten, who put it all together. And Barry gave him, and Barry was saying, yeah, I told him not to get this one, but he should get this tree and he should get that tree because it'll do better. And basically the plants for that site, because that site I would think is very hard to cultivate because it's really concrete with dirt on top. And most of the plants were successful. I mean, Barry really knew his stuff and he knew what would work. He's an amazing man. And he's in his 90s now, right? I think he's
91.
Well, I think it's probably mid-90s, maybe even later.
I think 91 this year.
Okay.
So anyway, so treasures like Barry, we want to get their story before before it's too late. So if anybody had any suggestions on people that we could do oral histories on, and then we would probably need some help doing research on if they're already out there and such like that. If anybody wants to help with that project, again, calhortinfo@gmail.com. I think that'll be a fun project. If everybody wants to stay on, we still have a few announcements for the coming events. Mary, do you have an update on the seeds? Have they gone out?
Yes, the seed sorting has happened and the packets are ready to go, and they'll probably be mailed out tomorrow. And so they'll be on their way, ready to plant. And we just had a ton of seed this year. And that seed, which was not requested, will be available at the next Cal Hort meeting. We have in April is an in-person meeting. So I'm going to bring lots of packets of seeds, and you can help yourself or take some and leave others for others. But anyway, we're gone. We're online. And we had a wonderful array of plants, just some natives, some not natives, some sunshade, everything. So
Okay.
yeah, it's especially
Second
a
chance.
wonderful year.
So little
Pardon?
packets of promise are on their way.
Little packets of promise, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so California's field trip is almost full. We've got we have all the cars that we can do, and there may be a couple of spaces if anybody's still interested in going to that. That's up in Lake Berryessa to see that. There's a Cedar Rough serpentine area that we're going to go walking around in, and then mainly it's driving and stopping and looking and driving and stopping and looking, and we'll have lunch on the road and stuff. So if anybody's interested in that, you will have to ride with somebody because we only have 5 cars that we can take. But it should be a fun trip with Kit McMichaels, and here's a few things that we'll be seeing besides other wildflowers and stuff. And then Don Mahoney's garden. Jeff contacted Don, and he's willing to open up his garden. Jeff, you want to say anything about Don's garden?
So the only thing I know about Don's garden is that he's been cultivating it for upwards of 30 years. He's really into bulbs. He's got lots of things in containers. If you want to get previews of his garden, there's like a series of 4 videos on YouTube by Tom Turkey, in which he interviews Don walking through the garden, and Don has all kinds of different things to say as he's walking through his own garden. But in any case, it's going to be easy parking, a wonderful time. It seems like a perfect time to go, early April, and so I'm looking forward to it.
If not everybody knows who Don is, he used to be I don't know if he's curator or director of the Botanic Gardens.
Curator.
So he has a lot of interesting, unusual plants, and I understand he has a lot of cloud forest plants and fuchsias and salvias and Vireo rhododendrons, and so it should be a really interesting display of interesting plants. So that's on April 5th, and RSVPs to Jeff, right?
Yes, we've gotten about 14 people to RSVP so far, so there's still plenty of room for everybody. There's no real cap. It's just sign up, people. It's going to be great.
The only thing I would say is to go ahead and make sure you wear your hardy shoes. It's kind of a jungle in there sometime, and they're not really wide paths. So if you need your walking sticks, bring them along with you. But he's got wonderful stuff in his garden.
Western Hort has a few items going on. They have a field trip on the 13th to Western Hills, and then a private garden hog hill, and more information will be in their April newsletter. So stay tuned for that. And then they're having their April 9th meeting goes with this one, Plants of California, Sierra Nevada by Michael Euler. There'll be announcements going out on that as well. And then if anybody has gardens that they would like to share, everybody likes to go visit other people's gardens and see what they've done with the space they have and what plants they can grow in the environment they have and everything. So we would love to come to your garden. And again, Cal Hort brings the coffee and tea, and then everybody brings kind of potluck little goodies to snack on while they're cruising around the gardens and talking plants. And I wanted to ask Susan if her garden would be one that we could go and visit.
Well, do you want to see my garden, or do you want to see some of the interesting public gardens?
All of the above. We can talk offline. Right. And then April 21st is our next meeting, and that's going to be a workshop with Begonia Society co-presidents, Vi Dvorak and Rita Nordby. And they're going to do kind of an introduction of begonias, and then we'll get to propagate or do some propagation and bring some home with us, which is going to be fun. Thank you, Susan, again, very much. We appreciate that. That was a really great program. I really enjoyed it. We'll see you guys at another event then.